Hello there guys, welcome back to ShootOut, welcome back to a brand new video. I've got a little bit of an extra spark to me today because I feel like there's been a little bit of order restored in the universe. Am I correct, George? How are you doing?
You're absolutely spot on, bro. You know why? Because those two results, I did not see either of those ones coming. I thought Tottenham were actually going to go to Brighton and win, and I thought Arsenal were going to smash West Ham. So I'm absolutely delighted. Not that Chelsea are involved in any of this title race, but West Ham are now 9 points off top of the league. And, well, Spurs are just still Spurs. So that is more than enough reason for me to be happy during this period of the year where no one really knows if we're coming or going. It's not Christmas. It's not quite the new year yet, but same old order is restored in London. North London has collapsed. It's the official breaking news. Thoughts, Big Eunice?
I mean, look, obviously, we're going to be, I'd say, fairly reasonable, right? This is one match day in the Premier League where things have collapsed in North London.
I didn't want to be reasonable.
I know.
I want to send them down.
Look, but listen, for the sake of the fact that we are in the position that we are in, I am very happy to be shameless for one match day because I'm not sure when it's going to happen again. Who knows if North London will collapse like this again for the rest of the season? It might not. So I think we're going to take full advantage of that situation as Chelsea supporters. But because we are on ShootOut, we are going to be fair and non-biased to an extent and actually say it for how it is. But yeah, it did not go well in North London last night whatsoever. Well, Tottenham went over to Brighton and the Amex and got decimated. Arsenal, not decimated, but void at home against West Ham. They got put to bed very comfortably by West Ham. Let's start with the Brighton-Tottenham game and our reaction to that, mate. What on earth went down there? And what do you nail it down to? Do you nail it down more towards Brighton and the praise that De Zerbi is getting today for the football that Brighton played, which is true to an extent? Or do you reckon it was Tottenham and the way that Ange set Tottenham up, their flaws over there? What do you put that result down to? Or is it a blend of both?
I think it's a mixture of three things. I think it is De Zerbi and the way he gets Brighton playing. I think this year they've obviously had European football to deal with, so they've kind of had to manage that squad a bit more. When you lose, you keep losing year after year, your player of the year. It is going to have some kind of toll, but they're still in 8th in the table, only 1 point off Man United, which isn't bad. I also think, secondly, it is kind of like a mixture of like that Christmas. Results can sometimes be a bit wacky because there's so many games and you don't know like how much did the Brighton players eat on Christmas Day? How much did the Tottenham players eat on Christmas Day? I think the fluke results come. But then also, again, to kind of let Spurs off the hook a bit. Like they've had so many players injured and having to play so many games in consecutive days or whatever. Like, I think one of these results was always going to happen. They'd won 3 in a row. Before that, they'd gone on a bit of a losing streak. So it's kind of been like up and down, and then they kind of salvage something. But also, like, we know the quality that Brighton have. And I think this season at times they've been unlucky. Like Pedro, for example, he scored 2 last night for Brighton. He's one of those players who I thought was going to absolutely explode this season. And it's not really been like an explosion, but you can kind of see that quality. He's brilliant in some games, and then the next game he's not so much. But he exploded in that match. And I think for Spurs, they're going to have quite a few results like this one until that squad gets a little bit thicker in order for people to be rested. And if you're going to keep having injuries, which probably will keep happening the way that they play football, then I think that this could be the story of their year where they go on these great runs and everyone's like, hang on, and then they go on these bad runs. And maybe this is the start of another bad run, but well done, Brighton.
Fair play. Listen, I wanna agree to that. Brighton on the night, I have to be honest, from my opinion, I think Brighton on the night capitalised and done what many teams I think at the moment should be capable to do against Tottenham. Why? Because despite you've just mentioned everything that's wrong with Tottenham, surely, as a manager, you have to take that into consideration, and you have to be a little bit more pragmatic in those situations, in those scenarios where you are restricted, your hands are tied, you haven't got all the players that you wish that you could have in order to express with the football that you want your team to play. I feel like Tottenham it's like it's almost as voluntarily just going to the opposition. Go on, I'll leave myself open. Let's see if you're going to take advantage. When you don't really have to do that. Do you know what I mean? It was 4-0 before Tottenham got some sort of goal back into the game, and they got decimated. But as much as Brighton played really well, I also think that's testament to the fact that Tottenham just don't want to let go of this way of playing. Ange ball, right? People are going to call it that. And I get it, but in this scenario, you've got to be, I think, a little bit more pragmatic, and you've got to be a little bit more structured and a little bit more disciplined. And even if it means that you have to leave with a draw, you leave with a draw. But that's not Tottenham.
Yeah, I think Spurs fans will probably be happy with this after all the managers that they've had that kind of just shoved good football under the bus and just ignored all of that concept. But at the same time, I think also the history books will remind us and inform us in a few years' time that, Ange Postecoglou was very entertaining, but he still didn't win you anything. Like, they got knocked out by a team in the lower leagues in the Cup earlier this season, which is stupid, playing the way that they're kind of trying to play, whilst playing against pragmatic teams who play against them knowing we're not as good as you, so we're just going to play football and do the football ABCs properly. And it's going to be the same this year. They're not going to win anything. They're probably not going to finish in the top 4 after 38 games. They're going to entertain a load of people, but because there is zero pragmatism when it comes to players' fitness, a plan B against teams that are actually really well structured and organised, they will just come unstuck. So I think where they are right now, let me just get the standings up for me to check. I think they're 5th in the league right now. You've got Man United, who 100% are going to go on some kind of little rampage now because that's a massive win against Aston Villa. Villa, I still think, are class. Man City, they'll come good. De Bruyne is coming back. Arsenal and Liverpool, significantly better teams. They're not getting top 4. They're just not getting top 4. So that's it. If they could have adapted during this period, maybe they'd have got a few more wins as opposed to draws or losses, or not draws as the case may be, losses. But yeah, I think this is a staple Tottenham Hotspur as an entity as you could possibly imagine. But at least now they've got some beautiful football back. So credit to them. That's it.
I mean, this is it. And I don't know if their fans are going to be just content with that. But it's all well and good looking to play really good football. And I admire that. And that is Postecoglou. And that is what he's about. And fair play. They've got an identity. But in times of need and in times of being, savvy, I think you have to be a little bit more smart and play it into your hands a little bit better instead of just putting all your cards on the table. Brighton, fair play. What a performance overall. If we're going to talk about just in the context of 90 minutes, they've not looked good for this part of the season. They've won one game in the last, I think, 4 or 5 prior to this, and they were looking a little bit off. They've had to do with the European schedule. They've had to do with some injuries as well. They've got quite a lot of men missing for this game, and yet they put in a clinic like this. What's your thoughts on Brighton, De Zerbi, and the way that they played yesterday?
I mean, I think it's the same kind of as Spurs, really. I think both teams would due a game and a performance like that. Brighton would due one of those matches where they just overperform a little bit. Spurs, they'd won 3 in a row, but because of the squad depth that they've got, I think over this period they're always going to have a loss. And I think overall, Brighton, again, if I pull up the table for myself again, they're 8th in the league. They've won 2 of their last 5, drawn 2 of them and only lost 1 of them. That's kind of where you're going to finish if you keep that form up. If they can go on a good run now, then who knows? The Premier League is so wide open, which is why I actually think last night could be the night that not only brings Man City fully back into the title race, because other teams dropping points when they've got that game in hand. You look at it now, City win, they go ahead of Arsenal on goal difference. But I actually think that what we saw from both Spurs and Arsenal last night plays perfectly into the hands of Liverpool winning this Premier League, because what Jurgen Klopp has done,
100%. Yeah,
he's made them so consistent, bro. And even that draw against Arsenal, that chance that Trent had after that incredible breakaway, Mo Salah gives it to Trent. Somehow the ball bobbles, it hits the crossbar. if that goes in, we're talking about a potential Arsenal crisis here. But because they only drew at Anfield, they've only won one of their last 4. Like, no one's that worried. This result has panicked Arsenal fans, yes. Rightly so, because in this Premier League season where there isn't a Man City who are just running away with it, Liverpool, yeah, they've been very consistent, they're very good, but like there isn't necessarily a team that is a standout above the rest. So for Arsenal in particular, that loss last night is a catastrophe. They've got to win all of their home games and then hopefully try and snatch your 1-1s at Liverpool more. But they've flumped it. I'm looking for a better word here, but a little marshmallow sponsored by Haribo or whatever it is. That'll do for now. They're still second though. But yeah, great result for the Hammers. They're 6th in the league, mate. West Ham is 6th.
Mate, it's look, you're completely right. There were doubts coming into this about Arsenal being consistent and going all the way. And historically, when you look at Arsenal and you look at how they normally get to January and then they start to slip, right? And that's just the Arsenal way, and we've seen it time and time again. Or at least results start to turn towards the latter stage of the season. And they've not even waited till January this time. They've managed to get it in the nick of time of December. So this is where you're absolutely right. If you're going to be serious in trying to win the Premier League, you can't be losing at home to West Ham. You can't. No matter, even though West Ham right now, fair play, they're back in the conversation of top 4. Which is nuts. I didn't think we'd be entertaining that. David Moyes has done a good job at West Ham, and it's ticking for them, and they find themselves 6th with a great result yesterday at the Emirates.
He's done an incredible job. Like
exactly, it's true.
To say he's done a good job is a massive understatement. Like when you think about the fact they lost Declan Rice, I think Mohamed Kudus, James Ward-Prowse have got to be 2 of the top 5 signings in the Premier League all summer long. Incredible signings, and like they've got European football again. They won a European Cup last year, and they're 6th in the league. A genuine shout for top 4 based on the momentum they've currently got. Like, outstanding. Like, truly outstanding. If it was any other manager that wasn't kind of like one of those, this isn't very cool to praise David Moyes thing. Like, if it was anyone else, and if he had a name that ended in like Onti or Enio, like he would be the best thing since sliced bread. Please make him the England manager, but you don't.
Moisinho.
Like, Moisinho, mate. Moisiola. Like, mop. Moyes and Klopp, mop. David Mop.
Oh, man. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Welcome back to Shootout. I'm clearly still drunk from the pre-Christmas one. I'm not.
No, you know what? You're completely right. Credit to West Ham and credit to David Moyes. At one point, I wouldn't have expected this at all. But you're right in mentioning those players that they've managed to get in, Kudus in particular. And even though letting Declan Rice go, what was up with Declan Rice yesterday? He looked like he was still in a West Ham shirt. Is he still on the payroll? You know,
I think it's just one of them games, though, isn't it? Where it's like, for West Ham now, that Arsenal game is going to be something where they're always going to want to just prove to Declan Rice that, you know, like we're not actually as bad, and these are not actually as good as you thought they were going to be. So I actually think that could be like a little rivalry. That's obviously Arsenal West Ham. It's a London derby anyway, but like that little caveat could actually play quite into the hands of West Ham against Arsenal more frequently, because Rice is a bloody brilliant player, but like they're a very good team. And I think when you everybody else is kind of having off days too, like at this point it's like for Arsenal, I'd be like, if we're not playing very well, when's Martinelli going to show up this season? Do you know what I mean? Like,
mate, they've got their front line. Their front line has gone blank. If we're talking completely, you're completely right. Martinelli absolutely asking questions, but questions need to be asked of Saka. We've not seen him. It's like he's disappeared. Jesus looking like he's not got what it takes to really lead the line completely throughout the entire season. And hence why I do think Arsenal are going to get Ivan Toney. I think that's a given. We'll see what happens there. But their front line's gone blank. And this is the thing. This is why going forward, and yesterday's result was an example, I just don't see how Arsenal have what it takes, Arteta included, to be able to go all the way and win the Premier League. I just don't think they've got enough. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
I agree. I think this is Liverpool's Premier League to lose at this point. I really do. And I think City, I think it's going to finish. I'll say it right now. This is what I think as of right now, the 29th of December at approximately 14:38 Bali Indonesian time. Liverpool first, Man City second, Arsenal third, and Aston Villa fourth is what I currently think the Premier League is going to finish. That's my prediction.
I agree. Although I'll flip Man City and Liverpool, and I think it'll be tight. I think City will actually end up picking themselves up and going all the way. But I think Liverpool will be there, 100%. And a lot of people seem to underestimate and think it's going to be between Man City and Arsenal. And Liverpool are kind of just going under the radar. I think Liverpool will be the ones to push City this year, absolutely. And Arsenal, I think, will
agree.
fall. I do think, and I'm not saying Arsenal are going to be losing games all the time now just because of this. No way. But I think this is the first of a few banana skins that Arsenal are going to have, and it's going to prevent them from going into a title race for the rest of the season, if you know what I mean, to compete until match day 38. So, but the result yesterday, have you got any moments or players or praises or criticisms that you've got to give to Arsenal or West Ham based on yesterday's game?
I think overall it was not an Arsenal team performance that was good enough in any stretch of the imagination. I think Martinelli was the guy that I just expect a lot more from if I'm an Arsenal fan. Like, I don't think this season his numbers have been very good anyway. And, you know, if Saka's also in the same boat, then one of them has got to pull it out the bag, because that's what the good teams do. You know, Liverpool have got it where Darwin Núñez was supposed to be the player who came in to be the main striker, the goal scorer again, but because they don't need that, they've got players like him that can come off the bench and make impacts in football matches. So I think this has been a long time coming for Arsenal, where this current patch of form, where it's 1 win in their last 4, the way that they've been playing all season long has been nowhere near as good as last year. They've been scraping past teams. The 4-3 at Luton rings a bell. The 2-1 against Wolves rings a bell. Like, they have not been very good. When I say very good, I mean like breathtakingly brilliant. They've not been that all season. And I feel as though when you're not playing that well, Christmas is when you come unstuck. And lo and behold, North London has fallen, mate. I'm sorry, I'm keeping to the line. I like it. I like it a lot.
No, listen. Chelsea won a football match and Arsenal and Tottenham lost at the same time.
Big up.
Is it 2015 again? Has order been restored? I'll be honest and say probably not, but for this week at least it has, and I'm going to enjoy every moment of it. So I'm not sure when we're going to get this again. So anyway, that's Tottenham losing to Brighton and find themselves in a sticky situation now going into the transfer window, where they're probably going to try and get some reinforcements in. Arsenal, they've got a big problem up top, I reckon, in terms of who's leading the line, who's going to get them out of the situation that they were in yesterday, for example, and I think that is going to be Ivan Toney, but we'll see what happens there. Up until that point, I think we will continue to see Arsenal struggles. Brighton, great performance overall, and West Ham getting the job done, despite, when you look at those stats, when you look at the game and you see how it went down, they had barely any shots, but they got 2 in the net. They had barely any possession, but they defended and controlled the game well. It just goes to show it's not all about stats, it's about the result. Am I correct, or am I correct, George?
You are bang spot on, mate. And I think we're going to have to wrap this one up, because we've got another video to come out later today, haven't we? We have got Premier League predictions, because there's bloody more games going on.
It's non-stop, and make sure you catch those predictions. It's a continuation of what we've just spoken here. Are these results going to have an effect on our predictions for the next one? Make sure that you're there to find out. Much appreciated. George, any final words before we close?
No, mate. I think you absolutely flipping nailed it with that one. What an outro.
Bloody, all right. Away the lads.